Loan Coalition. The University of California serves nearly 250,000 undergraduate, graduate, and professional degree students and graduates, a very high number and proportion of low-income students. Federal loans, although we've heard some horror stories, are an integral part of assuring access to a high-quality education for our many needy students, and I'd like to thank the Secretary for the opportunity to provide the department with comments on loan repayment issues that may be addressed in the next negotiated rulemaking process early next year. The defense to repayment regulations are a very important protection for student borrowers and need to be strengthened and aligned to the current real-world types of situations that some borrowers face. These borrowers may have attended schools where institutional wrongdoing occurred or where the educational quality of degree or certificate programs was lacking. These student borrowers were then unable to obtain their degree or educational credential, or the one they did obtain was not enough to make them ready for post-graduation employment or for repayment. It's essential to the strength of our loan programs that we minimize the defense to repayment claims in the future and ensure that institutions are providing borrowers the education that they sought and expected to receive. To that end, we would like to encourage the department to strengthen the enforcement and evaluations of the requirements for Title IV eligibility of institutions. Accreditation and program participation evaluations should help ensure that bad actors and bad programs are not eligible for federal lending or borrowing. Potential students should feel confident in the quality of education they receive. Preventing the awarding of loans for inadequate programs will lessen the need for discharges based on defense to repayment and help safeguard borrowers and taxpayers alike. In addition, institutions are required to have adequate administrative capability to be eligible for federal aid funds. I don't know why I can't talk today. Negotiated rulemaking could address defining benchmarks or minimum standards of capacity to receive or maintain eligibility for federal loan programs. Institutions that do not demonstrate sufficient controls to detect and prevent fraudulent behavior on a widespread scale should not be entrusted with federal dollars. Prevent manipulation of key data by institutions. The Secretary should engage negotiators to discuss and determine how to strengthen regulations in order to prevent manipulation of success indicators, such as the cohort default rate and the 90-10 rule at for-profit institutions. While the University of California feels it's very important to prevent these types of fraud and misrepresentation that lead to defense of repayment claims, it is also vital to protect borrowers who have been misled or who face a sudden school closure and are unable to complete their degree. If there's widespread evidence of fraud or misrepresentation at a school or program, the department should implement a simple process to automatically grant defense to repayment status for a group of affected borrowers. In these situations, borrowers should not be forced to individually apply for relief. All efforts should be made to avoid creating individual hurdles and delays in resolving the situation. In particular, resolutions for borrowers and students should not be delayed by enforcement proceedings for wrongdoing against the school or school officials, although we do think those should occur. In either group or individual cases, when a borrower applies for discharge of loans under defense to repayment, their loan should be put in an automatic forbearance and no payment should be due while their situation is being investigated by the Department of Education. This should apply to all types of federal loans. Explore with negotiators the use of false certification provisions as a means of discharging loans when appropriate, such as false certification of ability to benefit, which I think we heard about today. This may simplify the process for students and avoids complexity with taxability of the relief and with the 50 different state laws. Negotiators may help identify appropriate situations for the use of false certification in these cases. Discharge of student loans due to school misrepresentation or fraud should be an exceptional case and should be treated as such by the department. Yet at the same time, both widespread and individual cases must be undertaken with the utmost seriousness and with the greatest protections and considerations for the defaulted borrower, or the defrauded borrower. Other topics that you might consider to reduce discharges and strengthen the federal loan programs include supporting institutional efforts to appropriately limit individual borrowing. Current statute does allow aid administrators to use professional judgment to limit individual amounts a student may borrow on a case-by-case basis. However, aid administrators have been strongly cautioned against this by the department, as the direct loan programs are an entitlement. With more advanced counseling tools available, negotiators might discuss frameworks by which the department could give guidance on appropriately limiting borrowing when it is not in the best interest of the student, school, or taxpayer to take additional debt. Could also decouple eligibility for loans and Pell Grants, so that some schools who no longer participate in the federal loan programs because of fear that a high cohort default rate, for instance, some community colleges, drop out of the federal loan program and point their students towards much more expensive and risky private loans in order to retain their Pell Grant eligibility. Another thing that could be negotiated is elimination of the interest capitalization to reduce overall debt. Current statute allows for, but does not require, interest capitalization every time the borrower changes status, beginning with the end of the grace period and under certain circumstances in income-driven repayment plans or when changing plans. This capitalization increases the principal amount of the loan and the overall cost of borrowing, as future interest occurs then again on the capitalized amount. As it is not required, we encourage the department to consider eliminating capitalization of interest in these cases. In closing, I'd just like to thank you again for the opportunity to speak and testify on behalf of the University of California and the 250,000 students we represent. Thank you.